Welcome back to the Voices of Women Summit, where in honor of International Women's Day 2023, we are raising the voices of hundreds of women so their messages can be heard. Your host for this session is Sarah Michael. Sarah is the creator of Feminine Sales Power and the founder of Sparkling Results. She helps heart-centered entrepreneurs to put an end to marketing chaos and explode their sales. She has another amazing guest coming right up. Take it away, Sarah.
Take it away, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Michael. I'm super excited to be here today. We have another amazing guest coming.
You froze.
Did she freeze?
I think you did.
I did. Hi. Okay.
Maybe.
Welcome.
Hello.
We're so glad to have you. Wonderful. Now, tell us this. Why are you so passionate about story and your topic?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here, Sarah, and I'm happy to know we're kindred spirits, kind of in what we do.
Right.
And I'm very passionate about my topic because I've been writing stories forever. I've been a journalist. I've been a marketing writer corporately. And then in around 2009, I went out on my own and started working as an independent contractor, as a content writer, copywriter, content strategist. Stories are delightful to write. And actually, when I first went out on my own, I started to get a little freaked because I realized it seemed that in every email, every bit of research I did, everybody around me had an MBA in marketing or branding from Harvard, and I only had my BA in English. But stress allows you to self-reflect, and I realized I had the best tool in my toolbox of all. I had life, and life is filled with stories. And I realized that the stories I've been writing for years got visibility for my sources, enabled the corporate folks that I represented to get customers who would buy product or buy service. And people responded also to a lot of stories of the heart. So I realized the feelings created by story are imperative. And I've made it my mission to help my clients dig deep to find their talents and clarify their why so they can pull the string and articulate their story with energy that draws people to them. No better way to celebrate International Women's Day.
Absolutely. And I love that. That's magnetism. You just go out there and you do your thing and you be yourself and you tell your stories and people gravitate towards you. That's brilliant.
Well,
love it.
I think it happens because stories are of the heart, right? And they help us connect with people. And that's neuroscientifically proven. I mean, there's a lot of talk about stories these days, and even the neuroscientists are weighing in because stories like tactile experiences like hugs or even shaking hands at a networking event produce oxytocin, which is the love hormone, believe it or not. And when you tell stories, they do tug at the heartstrings because they produce this love hormone as well. And that makes people connect, and that makes them trust you. It builds your credibility. And beyond all that, if you're the teller of the story, it empowers you to keep going on and on and on, feeling more confidence in yourself.
Got it. Okay. So how does this then show up in business? Let's talk a little bit about exactly how it shows up in business.
So I mentioned the importance of feelings. And it is time that business give credence to feelings. For years, we've been saddled with this expression, it's just business. Somebody says something, it offends you. Somebody makes a grammatical error. Somebody makes a real faux pas in content, and people do a shoulder shrug and they say it's just business. It's like nobody cares. In my book, it's more than just business. Actually, I often use that as a hashtag more than just business, because it means that we put people first. We consider feelings. We realize that in the part of business, such as brand and marketing and content, feelings are more important than the logic. And as far as that is concerned, when you use story, everybody loves them, right? People are drawn to stories. People get to feel that the story you're telling, if it's universal enough, is their own, and they relate and they say, wow, she understands me. I want to do business with her. It's really an amazing thing.
Wow. And where in our business do are stories utilized?
Well, they are utilized in many ways. First of all, your online home, your website, there's content there. And when I say story, it doesn't have to be a long saga. You don't have to think Cinderella. It can actually be a few sentences, because story, the structure of story, is problem or aspiration, obstacle getting to a desired result, along comes a solution, and maybe you have a few bumps in the road while trying, but if you follow that solution, you will get to success. So in your web content, on your website, you're showing what you offer, and you're giving a story message. Beyond that, you can write blogs, which can be featured on your website. I know when I write blogs for people, I always start them with the idea of problem solution, and I create a sense of story there. You can use it in your social media. You can use it in your keynote address. The fact of the matter is, once you find your main story and your sub-stories that support it, these stories appear in everything you write, say, and do. It's your brand. It's your DNA.
Okay, it's your brand, it's your DNA. Got it. And how do you help people articulate their story, coax the story out of people so it's really relevant and strategic to their business?
So when I work with a client, I have a pretty lengthy intake session. And perhaps it's my journalistic background, or maybe it's just my curious mind, or a combination of both. But I ask a lot of questions, and they're good questions because I've done research on them, read anything about them that's already out in the universe. I've done research on their industry and their market segment, and I know how to ask the questions that draw them out. And what that does is focus them. So many clients have said to me, wow, this has helped me incredibly, because I've had ideas swimming around in my head, but I could not organize them. And your questions really caused me to think and start framing my ideas. Even made me excited about them, which is pretty cool. And that's where we begin, and that's how we start the content journey.
Hey, wow. Interesting. Yeah. Asking them questions and coaxing them. I do a similar process. I coax it out of them. I ask a lot of questions I've refined over 15, 20 years. You know what I mean? So they're really good questions, and they cut to the heart, right? I'm sure it's the same thing for you. They get they elicit, that the word meaning to draw out, they elicit the information you're looking for because they're just so refined over all the years
A good
of you
question
doing your
is
work.
worth its weight in gold.
True. Now, when you are, really helping a client, learn to talk about their story in writing, in verbally, what are some of the common mistakes you see that come up for people, maybe misconceptions about their story?
So the first mistake and the most glaring one I see is that people, I say they're in the gerbil cage. They're kind of like this, trying to prove themselves, right? So they want to come out of the gate talking about themselves or their business. They want to prove their worth to the prospects and customers who are coming to their website or listening to them speak or going to their Facebook page. What they don't realize is that when a person first interacts with them, they're not, first of all, most importantly, interested on the street creds of the person. They are focused. The customer or the prospect is focused on what's in it for them. And that's where the story comes in. That's where the message and the offer come in. You show them that you get, that you understand their problem. You show them that you can provide the solution to that problem. And you give them, you dangle that carrot and you give them a sense or a visual picture of what life will look like when they use your services, use your product, turn to your solution. And that's where the magnetic attraction starts.
It's really painting a vivid picture, which is something
The
I
other
talk about.
piece that people are flawed in is the need to say too much. And content and
Yes.
story are a place when less is more. I always encourage people, if they're wanting to write a brand story, or even if they're working on a speech, to kind of get down on paper. I like to work on paper, but to get down on paper all that they know about their subject, their area of expertise. So step one is getting it down. Step two is boiling it down to the essential elements that create a narrative that flow from problem through solution to success. And finally, once they get that down pat, they need to energize it. And that's when they keep repeating it and repeating it to a mirror, to themselves, to the tiles in the shower, and then they take it outside. And the more they do, back to the empowerment, they are empowered and they feel 10 feet tall and they can express what they want to say with enthusiasm, animation. They really breathe life into it.
Oh, wow. That gives it its sails so it can really flow. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, when somebody's having a hard time articulating their story, what do you tell them? How do you prompt them? How do you try to uncork them?
You know, I keep at it.
Good answer.
I'm very human and very conversational. I use humor a lot of times. Sometimes I'm even self-deprecating. Sometimes I bring in examples of myself when I felt down on myself or I've made a mistake or something, to show them this universality of this feeling they have that maybe they're not good enough. And then they start to feel comfortable. And once they start to feel comfortable, the conversation begins to flow. You know, I've also helped kids with college essays. And
I love it. Yay.
they That's a very delicate age, and they're faced with this
Mm.
insurmountable thing, getting into the college they want. While essays are not as important today as they were, they still are an expression of themselves, and they're still used to some extent by admissions boards, even for scholarships. But I remember this one young man. He was really reticent to work with me. His parents had made him. He was shy. He didn't think he had much to offer. And we had 5 sessions. And by that 5th session, we had an essay. And I made him read it aloud. And by the way, reading aloud is always a good way to internalize your content.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me when he was done and he said, "That's me." And it was him. It was true. They were his words, but he had never stopped to smell the roses and see how great he was. So it's a process. It's a process of gaining their trust. And it's a process of continuing to draw them out and create this enthusiasm about themselves. Once again, to use the word that makes them feel empowered.
Mm. Sounds very transformational and empowering.
Well, did you ever see the movie Rocky?
Yeah, of course.
Well, there's that scene in the movie when Rocky runs up the steps in the park in Philly, and the music gets louder and louder, and he gets to the top and he throws his arms up in the air, and the throngs of people are following. Everybody's throwing their arms up in the air and jumping around. And believe me, I call forth Rocky a lot of times when I'm talking about science, because in life, not only do we need more stories, but we need more Rocky moments. And these are the small little mini things that begin to make people feel good about themselves.
I love it. And you're reminding me of something my 5th grade teacher said. And I remember standing there on the side of the football field and being like, that's true. Like, just so, and it's not bragging if it's true. Like, just feel that for a second, y'all. It's not bragging if it's true. Right? And that's a big, you can feel confident about just sharing it, because like with the young man in his college essay, he saw how great he was. It was all true.
It was all true. And, there's a thing, you probably read about it, called the humble brag. But in reality, if you're not going to toot your own horn, for lack of a better way to say it, who is going to? But it's not a brag if you do it right. And that's another way that story comes in.
I agree.
It's a way
I agree, 100%.
Celebrating your wins, right? And when you celebrate your wins, once again, others get excited. They're drawn to you. And in that process, you get more excited yourself. And it spurs you on. It positions you to the next humble brag or the next story where you're celebrating your win. It becomes a self-perpetuating prophecy. And it's really a healthy, really good thing. And it's good for business. But honestly, it's good for life too. And of course, life and business, there's really a very fine line between them, if any at all.
Oh, I agree. It's all intertwined and mixed up. Wonderful. Well, wow, we certainly align on a lot of things. So tell me, Miss Barbara, I hear that you have a free gift for our audience. Alvi, can we get that in the chat? Why don't you tell us a little bit about it? Ooh,
So
it's already in there.
It's in there. It is actually, you go to chatwithbarb.com, and it's a PDF, getting it on paper, 9 steps to create your story. And it indicates the techniques, some of the tips that you can employ to create stories for yourself succinctly and with meaning, so that the narrative is intentional and purposeful. I noticed that somebody put in the barbaramannino.com start.asp. I don't think that's actually
No, that's actually, I just checked it. That's the exact link.
Oh,
If they were to click on that, they go exactly where they
Oh.
want to go,
Got it.
and it's perfect.
okay. All right. I'm so
Yeah, it
glad
works.
you
Tammy says it works.
tested.
Thank you, Tammy.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
we're testing things back here.
I love that.
So
I need that support.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's great. Like this, it's such a good resource for y'all to start to get your story down on paper and get it out of your head. One of my writing things is get it out, which is get it out of your head. And then we are somewhere. Then we can do something with it, right? Then we can make it better. But if it's still in your head, we're kind of stuck.
And that's an important message for International Women's Day, because we've all had feelings which are the engines to our ideas and our thoughts and our innovation. But if it stays inside of us, it's going nowhere. You have to get it out. And one more thing, people hear about story and they say, I'm not a writer. I can't tell stories. Everybody can tell a story because they're all around us. And if I may, I'm a collector of quotes, which probably isn't.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple more minutes. Go crazy.
Isn't surprising as a writer. But Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer, who talks about the magic of creativity, says that you don't have to be a writer to create story or to appreciate story. You just have to be curious. Curiosity just asks you to turn your head 1/4 of an inch and look at something a little more carefully. And Sarah, that's true. We all have to tweak our awareness to be aware of the stories that we're in or that others are in. And Elizabeth Gilbert goes on to say, you're part of everything that's around you. You're not an isolated object dropped in the middle of a static story. You're shaping your story, even as it is shaping you. I just think that's beautiful. And that goes to that whole idea of empowerment, which people don't talk about as much. In business, they talk about how story impacts your listeners, but never forget it impacts you too.
Well, yeah, it's that symbiotic, like it's impacting your business, but it's also helping you grow and expand and really own your worth and own your value and own how awesome you are. Own awesome is something I like to say.
Yeah, own your awesome. I like to say, find your purple, because I had an incredible mom and she loved purple, and she had this beautiful purple coat that 20 years after she's passed, still are talking about how beautiful she looked in that. And she wasn't royalty, but she was an achiever in life. She wasn't a CEO, a politician, a researcher, college professor. She was an achiever in life. Despite curveballs, she thrived. And so I tell people, find your purple. Find your story.
Find your purple. Oh, I love it. That's great. Find your story. Wonderful. Thank you, Miss Barbara. So appreciated. Y'all go to this link here. I'll put it in again. Grab Barbara's free gift and eat it up and have fun with it. And we will be seeing you again soon, Miss Barbara. And from there, I will say cheers. Up next, we have, oh goodness, I had it handy a second ago. Up next, we have Grace Monsignor. It's like a French name. I apologize for mangling it, but she's coming up next in about 5 minutes. Take care, y'all. Cheers.
Sarah, it was great. Thanks, everyone. Alvy,
You're
too.
welcome.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing session of the Voices of Women Summit, where our mission is to raise the voices of hundreds of women so their messages can be heard. For recordings of all sessions, plus an amazing VIP gift bundle, upgrade to VIP now. If you have any questions or problems during the summit, email our support team at support@voicesofwomensummit.com. Stay tuned. We have another fantastic speaker coming right up.